A report on the impact of Phase 4 in a moment.
Well, Susie, how's the new job?
Unreal, Mr. Simmons. My first customer, and she can't make up her mind about a laxative. There's zillions.
Why not recommend the kind I use? Phillips Milk of Magnesia. It's so gentle and yet thorough. And Milk of Magnesia is the laxative doctors recommend most often.
Doctors do?
Sure do.
Well, Mrs. Drummond, I'd recommend Phillips Milk of Magnesia, because it's the kind of laxative doctors recommend most. Doctors do?
Papa Dog, Mama Dog, and Baby Dog took a walk and got itchy fleas. Luckily, a little blonde girl happened by with Hearts Mountain 90-day flea tags. She put the large Hearts tag on Papa Dog, the regular Hearts tag on Mama Dog, and a small Hearts tag on Junior. And they were all just right. Just the right amount of flea protection that lasts 3 months. And there's a Hearts tag just for cats, too. Hearts 90-day flea tags. Just right.
The government's new Phase 4 economic program had its most immediate impact today, precisely where expected in the nation's food industry. With the removal of the food price freeze, except on beef, some supermarket prices were already up this morning. Broader increases are expected in the next few days. Wholesalers for a wide variety of food products have already announced plans to raise their prices. We have reports from 2 food industry marketing areas on the impact of Phase 4, first Ann Kestner in California.
In California, where many of the nation's fruits and vegetables are grown, reaction to Phase 4 was predictable. Growers responded favorably because fewer controls mean more domestic markets for them. Wholesalers at the Los Angeles Terminal Market also were pleased.
My reaction to Phase 4 is very affirmative. It's given us the freedom to sell produce, which is a very perishable commodity, which shouldn't have any restrictions.
The cost of production for the farmers has been so darn high, they haven't been shipping us anything. But now we should start getting a little merchandise, and the price will go up temporarily, then come back down, and it should help the housewife.
Wholesalers feel there will be a continuing high consumer demand for fruits and vegetables, and in the marketplace, that translates into escalating prices.
I know it's going to mean more money out of my pocketbook when I come to buy groceries, and there are a lot of shortages I have found.
I don't think it's fair, but it's just a thing, I guess, that we have to go along with.
I don't mind the people. The people have to get the money. You know, they raise the crops, they got to get the money, but the little people, they're paying through the nose, I think.
Well, the long-range goal of Phase 4 is ending inflation. The short-range goal in agriculture is increasing supplies and thus reducing present shortages. For shoppers, that translates into higher prices. Ann Kestner, ABC News, Los Angeles.
This is Ron Miller in Chicago. The beef industry is yelling foul over Phase 4 and charging discrimination against cattlemen. Beef was not included in the Phase 4 removal of price ceilings, so the supermarket price of beef will remain frozen until the 12th of September. That continuation of price ceilings may sound like good news to the consumer, but may in fact result in another problem at the meat counter.
We'll have a pretty good run of beef for the next 2 or 3 weeks. Through late August and early September, there will be practically a total beef drought. And the reason this will be true is that the man out there who is feeding these animals, getting them ready to come to market, will now so manage those animals that they'll come to market after the price is lifted on beef on the 12th of September.
Pork, poultry, and lamb will be available in supermarkets in greater quantity at higher cost because price ceilings on those products were lifted under Phase 4. Previous ceilings helped create supply line instability, causing producers, processors, and distributors to curtail their operations. Shortages became evident. That same situation is predicted to continue in the beef industry as long as price controls are in effect. The solution most frequently offered by the industry is an uncontrolled free market.
If you asked me what I would do about the situation, I said I would remove ceilings at all levels, let supply and demand operate, and let the chips fall where they may for the time being, and let the conditions settle down to the point where everybody can operate under the natural laws of supply and demand.
The forecast for success or failure of Phase 4 generally depend on which segment of the food industry is speaking. But there are certainties for the consumer. beef shortages by late summer, and increased food costs of at least 4 to 5%. Ron Miller, ABC News, Chicago.
In Washington today, Agriculture Secretary Earl Butz called in farm and food industry leaders to talk to them about the goal behind lifting the freeze, increased production. Herbert Kaplow reports.
Secretary Butz fought the freeze in the first place, correctly predicting that farmers wouldn't produce under such a restraint. Well, today he limited his I told you so's. Instead, he called in representatives of the farm and food industry to give them a Phase 4 pep talk.
The ball's back in our hands. We've been complaining about this price freeze. It's been counterproductive in many of the areas represented in this room. We know it now. But now the ball's back in our hands, and it's up to us. I think we've got an obligation to the American consumer to make sure that we do increase our food supplies for next year. We've got an obligation to our customers overseas. We need to stop the liquidation of production of essential food products and turn on the spigot for increased production. We're going to do our best to make sure that farmers have every available aid for production next year.
Specifically, said Butz, that means helping the farmers meet their fuel and fertilizer needs and getting millions of more acres into production. Herbert Kaplow, ABC News, Washington.
The Cost of Living Council today said the new Phase 4 rules will force rollbacks in gasoline prices in some parts of the nation. Treasury Secretary George Shultz told a group of foreign newsmen that Phase 4 means the U.S. is going to do better on inflation and the overall U.S. economy will be strengthened. Meanwhile, the Commerce Department reported the annual rate of inflation during the second quarter of the year rose to 6.8% compared to 6.1% in the first quarter. It also reported the growth rate of the nation's economy slowed during the same period to 2.6% compared to 8% in the first quarter. The Senate today passed a bill to raise the minimum wage to $2.20 an hour and extend minimum wage coverage to 7 million additional workers. The bill, which had faced a number of Republican objections, now goes to a Senate House Conference Committee. On the New York Stock Exchange today, the Dow Jones Industrial Average closed up more than a point. Standard & Poor's 500 stock average was up 0.20. Trading was brisk.
Denture wearers, wake up to the cleaning power of a million tiny scrub brushes. That's Polident tablets. Green Polident has Dentrol. It gives Polident cleaning power like a million tiny scrub brushes, scrubbing away film, odor, and even stubborn stains between teeth. They don't stop till dentures are clean. Try Polident tablets or economical powder. Polident cleans like a million tiny scrub brushes.
Now, tests have proven that not even the leading antiseptic mouthwash is more effective against bad breath than Levoris.
Sylvia, did you hear that?
Yes, dear.
They said a mouthwash doesn't have to taste bad to work.
I know, dear.
They said not even the leading antiseptic mouthwash is more effective than Levoris. But Levoris tastes good.
I know, dear.
Then why?
We do, dear. And look, Levoris is the mouthwash more dentists use.
That's a mouthwash you could love.
Levoris works, and it tastes good.
The world looks to Wall Street for good investments, so we brought one here to show you. The Buick LeSabre. It's the old buy low, sell high idea. It's a full-size car with a 350 cubic inch V8 engine, automatic transmission, power steering, and power front disc brakes, all standard. There are dividends available, like a vinyl roof, steel road wheels, white wall tires, and an AM radio. The manufacturer's suggested retail price is $44,5205. And even though that doesn't include state and local taxes and dealer destination charges, it sure is buying low. The selling high is in LeSabre's great resale value. Invest in one soon at your Buick dealer.
An Arab terrorist held 15 people hostage today in a hotel in Athens. Armed with a submachine gun and hand grenades, he threatened to kill them if the Greek government did not guarantee him safe passage to the Middle East. The incident began when the terrorist tried and failed to break into the Athens office of El Al, the Israeli airline. It ended 4 hours later when the man released the hostages unharmed in exchange for safe conduct to the Athens airport. A New Zealand protest vessel reported today it is just 20 miles off the South Pacific atoll where France is about to set off a nuclear explosion. The New Zealand government says those aboard the ship can see a balloon from which the nuclear device is expected to be dropped, and they have sealed their vessel up to prepare for the blast. The French plan to set off an atmospheric nuclear test has created protests throughout the world and also in France itself. ABC's Jim Giggins has a report.
To test or not to test has been the hottest political question in France for some time. In fact, France's decision to go ahead with its nuclear tests in the Pacific sparked television debates, radio seminars, and front-page editorials. This photo of a nuclear explosion appeared on the cover of the country's leading news magazine. The caption read, "France outside the law," a reference to the World Court's sharp disagreement with the French government over its nuclear test plans. Some dissenters have objected on legal and others on moral grounds, but a good many others have been against the tests simply because they felt it was one big public relations program to prove that France is a world power. A number of distinguished French scientists have agreed with the critics, saying that those who are truly nuclear powers don't need to show it with tests in the Pacific. Other scientists have added that the entire idea of a retaliatory nuclear strike force is an anachronism in the nuclear age. Despite all the verbal and written criticism, it didn't change a thing. One reason is that the government successfully avoided the type of dissent it most feared at home, demonstrations in the streets. Critics have said that one of the ways the government did this was by planning the tests shrewdly for July, knowing that there'd be little chance of demonstrations with millions of workers out of the cities on vacation, but more important, with students away from the campuses for the summer. This is Jim Giggins, ABC News, Paris.
I'll have more news in a moment.
The trouble with fruit and cereal is when you run out of fruit, you're left with just cereal.
That's why we put so many raisins in Post Raisin Bran.
Sweet raisins, chewy raisins, lots of raisins. No wonder fruit and cereal lovers love Post Raisin Bran. You can get raisins in every spoonful.
That's why you never have to run out of raisins in Post Raisin Bran.
It's the fruit and cereal lovers cereal.
When we first got Chip here, my son Peter made a solemn vow that he would always feed his dog. So naturally, I'm the one who feeds him. But I really don't mind. Actually, I like to watch Gravy Train make its thick, beefy-tasting gravy when I add a little warm water. And I enjoy knowing that our dog is getting a complete, good-tasting dinner. Okay, there you go. He sure likes his Gravy Train. No matter who serves it up.
Gravy Train. Good taste. And gravy, too.
In other news, in Chicago today, the Benevolent and Protective Order of Elks dropped its whites-only membership qualification. The restriction was written into the bylaws when the Elks were founded in 1868. Convention delegates voted 3-1 to drop it. The order's grand exalted ruler said that changing social attitudes that threatened loss of liquor licenses led to the convention's action. The Federal Trade Commission announced today that shoppers who collect S&H green stamps now will be able to collect money or merchandise at their option. A book of 1,200 stamps will be worth $2. A consent agreement between the FTC and the Sperry and Hutchinson Corporation provides for the cash payments.